Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we're taking you to the far edge of Kenya's coast, to the island of Lamu, where a rhythm older than any empire pulses with the tide. Here, coral houses rise above sandy alleys, and the air itself smells of salt and prayer. This is where we delve into the life of the Lamu coconut harvester, life of sweat, toil, and quiet dignity. Each morning, as dawn breaks over the Indian Ocean, men and women begin their ascent. They climb the towering palms, their bodies glistening like wet mahogany in the early light, their breath as steady and constant as the waves. Every swing of a machete, every thud of a husked nut hitting the ground, is a note in a timeless melody, a dance between hunger and survival. By the end of our journey tonight, you won't just know about this life from a history book. You'll feel it in the hands, the muscles, and the quiet sighs of those who live it every single day. Long before the first tourists arrived, long before colonial flags fluttered above the ancient mosques, the coast had its own humble riches: coconut oil, copra, and palm wine. For centuries, the people of Lamu have depended on these palms, aptly named the Tree of Life. They've crafted everything from sturdy rope and woven mats to precious oil and the sweet, fermented liquid that soothes a tired throat after a long day under the equatorial sun. But the story of the harvester isn't one of effortless abundance. It's a tale of calloused hands and often forgotten names. It's the story of men and women who gave their sweat, their strength, and their entire lives to trees that offered no words of gratitude in return. If you listen closely to the coastal winds that sweep through the palm groves, you can almost hear the whispers of those who came before. The ones who woke before the first call to prayer, tying strips of cloths around their waists for support, rubbing sand on their palms to get a better grip, and walking barefoot through the cool morning sand to the grove where their work awaited them. In this episode, we will climb those very trees alongside them. We'll move slowly, carefully, feeling each rough fiber of bark against our skin, sharing each breath taken between moments of sheer exhaustion and unwavering faith. We will follow the beads of sweat that fall like offerings onto the roots below, nourishing the very trees that demand so much. And through this journey, we'll begin to understand how a person, a man, or a woman with a name, a family, and a story can become almost invisible over time. Not because they've vanished, but because their hard labor, their very essence, has been woven into every single shining drop of coconut oil that glistens in the sun, consumed and celebrated by a world that may never know their name. The coconut is more than just a fruit here. It's a lifeline. Its water quenches thirst, its meat provides nourishment, and its oil fuels both lamps and local economies. Every part of it is used. Nothing is wasted. This deep connection between the people and the palms has shaped the culture, the traditions, and the very soul of Lamu for generations. The harvest is not just a job. It's a ritual passed down from father to son, mother to daughter. It's an inherited knowledge of which trees are ready, how to read the winds, and the precise angle to strike the stem so the nut falls without breaking. But this tradition now faces an uncertain future. Modernization, changing economies, and the lure of easier work in the cities are drawing the younger generation away from the groves. The hands that have held this knowledge for centuries are growing older, and there are fewer young hands ready to take their place. What happens when the rhythm of the harvest falters? What becomes of the tree of life when there is no one left to climb it? This is not just a story about the past. It says a conversation about the present and a question about the future of a community built on the back of this humble yet vital industry. We'll meet the harvesters who remain, listen to their hopes and their fears, and witness the incredible resilience that defines their spirit. Thank you for joining us. If this journey resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories from across the continent. Your support helps us bring these important narratives to light. You are now under baobab skies, and the story begins now. By the end of our journey today, you'll understand what it means to live between faith and fatigue. You'll know what it feels like to wake before the dawn and offer your body to the palms. Here, the first sound of the morning isn't the chirping of birds. It's the slow, resonant echo of the muezzin's call, floating over the mangroves. Allahu Akbar. The voice moves through the pre-dawn mist, touching the clay walls of huts, seeping into the last moments of dreams. It's a call to prayer, but also a call to begin the day's labor. In a small hut near Shaila village, a man named Hassan rises before his wife even stirs. The stillness of the early morning is broken by the sound of his knees cracking as he stands. His palms ache with a dull, familiar throb from yesterday's climb, a constant reminder of the work that defines his life. But the palms wait for no one. He takes a long drink from a gourd of cool water, the liquid a small blessing in the growing warmth. He touches the earthen floor 3 times, a simple, grounding habit learned from his father, a gesture that connects him to generations past. He wraps his loincloth tight around his waist, the fabric worn and soft, and prepares to face the day. Outside, the world feels like it's holding a slow, deep breath. The sand is cool and damp underfoot, a temporary relief before the sun claims the sky. The horizon is just beginning to blush with a soft orange, a delicate promise of the intense heat that will soon follow. At the edge of the coconut grove, other men are gathering. They are figures in the half-light, their silhouettes etched against the brightening sky. They exchange silent nods, a language of shared understanding that needs no words. Their faces are etched with the lines of hard work and early mornings. The day ahead will speak for them, through their sweat and their determination. The palms stand before them, tall and imposing, like sentinels guarding the coastline. They are sentinels of sweat, their crowns seeming to brush the heavens. Each trunk is a ladder to the sky, a challenge to be met. The harvesters begin their preparations with a quiet, practiced efficiency. They inspect their Kumba Yaka Panda, a rough, durable rope loop that is their primary tool for gripping the trunk. It's a simple device, but it is their lifeline, the key to their ascent. They run a thumb along the sharpened edge of their machetes, feeling for the perfect keenness. As they do, they whisper old charms under their breath, prayers for safety and a bountiful harvest. There is always this moment of profound stillness before the first climb of the day are quiet. Personal reckoning between fear and duty, between the risks of the climb and the needs of their families. The honor of the first climb always belongs to the oldest harvester in the group. Today, it is Omar. His spine is curved, almost mimicking the gentle arc of the palm itself, a testament to a lifetime of this work. But his movements are still fluid and sure, a dance of muscle memory refined over decades. He places the rope loop around the trunk and his feet, presses his bare soles against the rough bark, leans his weight forward, and begins to ascend. Each step he takes is a rhythmic, almost prayer-like motion. Each pull of the rope echoes the steady, powerful pulse of his own heart. The sound is a percussive beat against the quiet morning huff. Pull, slide, step, up and up he goes, a small figure against the immense height of the tree. When he finally reaches the top, the wind greets him like a cool old friend, tousling his hair and offering a moment of relief. He settles himself astride the palm's crown, a precarious throne 60 feet in the air. For a moment, he is king of this small world. He looks out at the Indian Ocean shimmering below, the water catching the first true rays of sunlight. He whispers another blessing for safety, a private conversation between him, the tree, and his creator. Then, with the practiced economy of an expert, he raises his machete. 3 swift, powerful strikes sever the stems. Below, the heavy thuds of the falling coconuts hitting the soft sand mix with the gentle, rhythmic sound of the waves washing ashore. This is the sound of the day truly beginning. It's the sound of provision, of another day's work started, and another small victory won against the sky. The spell of the morning stillness is broken, and now the real work begins. The other men follow Omar's lead, each choosing a palm and starting their own ascent. The grove comes alive with the rhythmic sounds of climbing, the whisper of ropes on bark, and the intermittent thuds of falling fruit. Hassan selects a tall, slender palm near the water's edge. He's climbed this particular tree hundreds of times. He knows its every groove, every knot in its bark. He begins his climb, his body moving with a familiar grace. The ache in his palms sharpens into a stinging pain, but he pushes through it. He focuses on his breath, on the rhythm of his movement. Halfway up, he pauses, leaning back against his rope to rest his arms. He looks down and sees his fellow villagers beginning to stir. The smell of cooking fires starts to drift on the breeze, mingling with the salt of the sea. This is the world he works for, the community his labor helps to sustain. He continues his climb with renewed purpose. At the crown, he works quickly. The sun is now climbing higher, its warmth turning into a pressing heat on his back. Sweat drips from his brow, stinging his eyes. He cuts a dozen coconuts, watching them fall to the sand below like heavy raindrops. From this vantage point, he can see the whole of the bay. He sees the traditional dhow boats with their lateen sails beginning to move out for the day's fishing. He sees children running along the beach. This view is a privilege, a perspective few will ever know. It's a brief, beautiful reward for the grueling effort it takes to get here. Back on the ground, the work is far from over. The fallen coconuts must be gathered. Hassan and the other men used long, hooked poles to pull the scattered fruit into large piles. It's heavy, repetitive work. They load the coconuts into woven baskets, which are then carried on their shoulders or loaded onto donkeys. The donkeys are the unsung heroes of this trade, patiently carrying the heavy loads along the narrow, sandy paths that lead back to the village. The men walk alongside them, their feet sinking into the hot sand, their conversation light and easy, now that the most dangerous part of the day is done. They joke and laugh, the camaraderie a vital antidote to the toil. In the village, the coconuts are sorted. Some will be sold whole to traders, who will ship them to markets in Mombasa or beyond. Others will be husked and cracked open right here. The water inside is a refreshing drink, a natural energy boost for the harvesters. The white meat will be grated by the women of the village, a task they perform with incredible speed and skill. Their hands a blur of motion over traditional graters. This grated coconut is the foundation of Swahili cuisine, used to make rich, fragrant curries and creamy sauces. Nothing is wasted. The husks are used for fuel, their fibers woven into rope, and the shells are carved into cups and bowls. The coconut palm is not just a source of income. It is the tree of life, providing food, drink, fuel, and material for countless daily needs. As midday approaches, the sun is at its most unforgiving. The harvesters take a break in the shade of the very palms they just climbed. They eat a simple meal of rice and beans, often enriched with the fresh coconut milk they've just produced. They talk about the prices at the market, the health of the trees, the news from the village. They share stories and check in on one another. This community is as essential as the ropes they climb with. It's a network of support, a brotherhood forged in shared risk and shared reward. In the afternoon, they may make another, shorter round of climbs if the demand is high. But often, the afternoon is for other tasks: mending ropes, sharpening machetes, or tending to their own small gardens. It's a life of constant motion, of balancing the demands of the palms with the needs of their families and homes. There is a quiet dignity in this rhythm, a deep connection to the land and the seasons. As the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand, the day's labor winds down. Hassan returns to his hut, his body weary, his muscles aching. His wife greets him with a basin of water to wash the day's grime away. His children gather around, their laughter the sweetest sound of the day. He is tired, but it is a good tired. It's the fatigue that comes from providing, from fulfilling his duty. Looking out from his doorway, he sees the palms, silhouetted against the fiery sunset. They are no longer a challenge to be conquered, but silent partners in his life's work. He knows he will wake before the dawn tomorrow and do it all again. He will listen for the muezzin's call, feel the ache in his palms, and answer the call of the trees. This is his life, a delicate balance between the sacred and the strenuous, a life lived between faith and fatigue. As dawn breaks over the Swahili coast, a gentle light kisses the tops of the coconut palms, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. This is a scene that has unfolded for centuries, a timeless rhythm of life and labor. Here, in the groves that fringe the turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean, a day's work is about to begin. The air is still cool, carrying the salty temps of the sea and the sweet, earthy scent of palm fronds. For the men of the village, the harvesters, this is their office, their inheritance, and their challenge. Long before the first tourist dhows set sail, these men are already awake, their bare feet padding softly on the sandy ground. They move with a practiced grace, their bodies lean and strong, honed by years of climbing. The coconut palm, or Nazi asterisk, as it's known here, is more than just a tree. It's the lifeblood of the community. It provides food, drink, shelter, and income, but it does not give up its gifts easily. Each coconut must be earned, plucked from heights that would make most people dizzy. Today, we follow Hassan, a young harvester whose story is woven into the very fabric of this ancient tradition. His day, like his father's and his grandfather's before him, is a testament to resilience, a quiet battle against gravity and heat. As the sun begins its ascent, the harvesters start their climb. There are no safety nets here, no modern equipment, just a rope loop for their feet and hands calloused by a lifetime of work. They move like lizards up the trunks, their bare feet finding purchase on bark slick with morning dew and sap. It's a dance of strength and balance, a conversation between man and tree. Before the real work begins, there is a small ritual, a moment of reprieve. They pause near the top to cut into the flower of the palm, drinking the sweet, fresh Nazi juice that trickles out. It's a natural energy drink, a small gift from the tree, fortifying them for the exhaustion that will surely come. This sweet nectar is a reminder of the tree's generosity, a stark contrast to the grueling labor it demands. Hassan takes a long drink, the cool liquid a welcome relief. He pauses, his silhouette framed against the rising sun, and wipes a bead of sweat from his brow. His gaze drifts out towards the sea, where the silhouettes of dhows are beginning to appear on the horizon, their triangular sails like shark fins cutting through the water. In this moment of quiet, he remembers his father's words, a mantra passed down through generations. A man is measured by how high he climbs, not how loud he complains. It was a saying from the old days, a time before colonial powers set taxes on copra, the dried coconut meat, and forced the local men to sell their precious oil to foreign merchants for a pittance. The world had changed, the economics had shifted, but the climb remained the same. So did the hunger, the constant, gnawing need that drove them up these trees day after day. The saying is a reminder of dignity, of finding pride in the work itself, even when the rewards seem unjustly small. It's about enduring, about pushing forward, not for recognition, but for survival and for the family waiting back home. The grove slowly comes alive with the rhythmic thud of coconuts hitting the sandy ground. The heat intensifies with each passing minute, a heavy blanket settling over the coast. To cope with the grueling work, the men have their own methods. Some tell jokes, their laughter echoing through the trees, a temporary shield against the ache in their muscles. Others hum old *TAARAB* tunes, the haunting, melodic rhythms of the Swahili Coast, providing a steady cadence for their breathing and their movements. The music is a thread connecting them to their culture, a source of solace and strength. It transforms the repetitive, arduous labor into a kind of meditation, a physical expression of a deep-rooted heritage. Hassan, however, works in silence. His focus is absolute, his movements economical and precise. The only sound he makes is the sharp, clean flash of his ponga, the machete he uses to cut the coconut stems. In the quiet of his mind, his thoughts drift away from the heat and the strain. He thinks of his wife, her gentle smile, and the new life she carries within her. This child, his child, is the reason he climbs. He is not just harvesting coconuts. He is gathering hope, building a future one fruit at a time. He allows himself a small, private dream to save enough shillings to buy his wife a pair of silver earrings. Not just any earrings, but the intricate, dangling kind he's seen the wealthy women wear during the vibrant Lamu festivals. It's a simple dream, a symbol of beauty and care in a life defined by hardship. But under the oppressive midday sun, even dreams can feel heavy, another weight to carry up the towering palms. By noon, the world seems to warp and shimmer in the intense heat. The air is thick and still, buzzing with the relentless hum of insects. The sand, once cool, now burns like hot coals against the soles of their feet. Every part of Hassan's body aches. His hands are raw and bleeding from the constant friction of the rope, the coarse fibers digging into his skin with every ascent. But he doesn't stop. He can't. He wraps a piece of cloth around the rawest parts of his palms and prepares to climb again. One more tree, one more coin. It's the unwritten law of the harvest. You cannot stop until the job is done, until the last tree has bowed to your will and surrendered its fruit. Each climb is an act of defiance against his own body's protests, a testament to his sheer determination. He pushes past the pain, his mind locked on the goal. The pile of coconuts on the ground grows slowly, each one a small victory, a tangible result of his suffering and perseverance. The only true respite comes when the call to prayer, the door echoes from the village mosque. The sound floats through the shimmering air, a sacred signal that grants them permission to rest. The harvesters descend from the trees, their movements slower now, weary. They gather under the sparse shade of a single, large mango tree, its leaves offering a small oasis from the relentless sun. The camaraderie of the morning returns, but it's a quieter, more subdued version. Words are few. There's no need for them. They all share the same bone-deep exhaustion, the same burns on their hands, the same silent understanding of the day's toll. They unpack their simple lunches. Today, it's dried fish, a small portion of rice, and perhaps a piece of fruit. They share what they have, passing food between them in a silent communion. This shared meal is more than just sustenance for their tired bodies. It's a ritual that reinforces their bond. They are not just co-workers, they are brothers in labor, bound by the shared experience of the climb. In the quiet stillness, they eat, regain their strength, and prepare for the second half of the day. The sun will soon begin its descent, but there are still many more trees to climb, many more coconuts to gather before they can return to their families. The silence under the tree is heavy but comforting, a shared acknowledgement of their struggle and their collective endurance. They are the coconut men of the Swahili Coast, and this is their life, written in sweat and sacrifice. High among the whispering palms, as the afternoon sun begins its slow descent, casting long, weary shadows across the sand, a figure emerges. He is a Swahili merchant, clad in a crisp, white kanzu that stands in stark contrast to the dust-covered laborers. In one hand, he clutches a ledger, the book of their fortunes, or rather, their misfortunes. Trailing a few steps behind is a younger man, his posture stiff, a product of British schooling. He holds a pen poised over paper, ready to tally the day's hard-won harvest. The harvesters, their bodies aching from a day spent scaling the towering palms, form a line. Their muscles burn, their hands are raw, but their faces are stoic, accustomed to this ritual. Beside them, mountains of coconuts are piled high, a testament to their relentless effort. The air is thick with the sweet, milky scent of the fruit and the salty tank of the sea. The merchant moves down the line. His voice, smooth and practiced, calls out names. The younger man dutifully jots down numbers. For every 100 coconuts, a meager handful of coins is dispensed. 100 times a man risked his life, climbing towards the sky, and for that, he receives barely enough to feed his family for a day. The clinking of the coins is a hollow sound against the vastness of the ocean. The merchant offers a thin smile, a placating gesture. More next season, he promises, the words floating away on the breeze, as empty as the pockets of the men he addresses. With that, he turns, and a servant unfurls a parasol to shield him from the lingering sun as he walks away, his silhouette shrinking against the horizon. Hassan watches him go. There is no fire of rage in his belly, no flicker of hope in his heart. There is only a quiet, profound, deep-seated knowledge that his sweat, his toil, his very life force will merely serve to light another man's lamp, to fill another man's coffers. He feels the weariness, not just in his bones, but in his soul. He turns his gaze away from the departing merchant and back toward the sea, where the sky is now ablaze with fiery oranges and deep purples, a spectacle of beauty that feels both mocking and comforting. In the distance, the silhouettes of traditional dhows glide westward across the shimmering water. Their triangular sails, like the fins of great sea creatures, catch the last, gentle breath of the day's wind, carrying them toward unseen shores. The sight is timeless, a rhythm of life that has persisted for centuries, long before merchants with ledgers, and long after this day's pain is forgotten. A collective sigh seems to pass through the group of harvesters. The day's work is truly done. They begin to gather their simple tools, the ropes, the curved knives. The sounds are soft, muted, the scrape of a blade being cleaned, the coiling of a rope. With their tools slung over their shoulders, they begin the long walk home. The fine coastal dust, stirred by their tired feet, clings to their legs like a second skin. The salt from the sea spray dries on their lips, a constant reminder of where they are. They walk in silence, a camaraderie that needs no words. Behind them, the coconut palms stand as they always have, silent, tall, and utterly indifferent to the human dramas that unfold beneath their fronds. They are witnesses, but they are not judges. They simply are. The path home is familiar, every twist and turn etched into Hassan's memory. The village ahead is a collection of simple homes, smoke beginning to curl from the cooking fires. The air shifts, carrying the scent of charcoal and spices, the aroma of evening meals being prepared. It's the smell of home, a scent that pulls him forward. Each step is heavy, yet purposeful. He is no longer just a harvester. He is a husband, a father-to-be, a man returning to the center of his world. When Hassan finally crosses the threshold of his small, mud-walled home, the dim interior offers a cool respite from the day's heat. His wife looks up from her work, her face breaking into a warm smile that instantly eases some of the tightness in his chest. Her belly is round, a vessel of new life, a promise of a future he cannot yet fully grasp. As he approaches, the child inside her gives a sudden, vigorous kick, a little flutter of life against the wall of her womb. She laughs softly and takes his calloused hand, placing it on her stomach. He feels it, then another kick, a tiny, insistent pulse beneath his palm. It is a message from a world he has helped create, a life that is part of him yet entirely its own. In that moment, the weight of the day, the injustice of the merchant, the ache in his muscles, it all seems to recede, pushed back by this powerful, undeniable miracle. He leans in close, his lips near her skin, and he whispers, the words meant only for the unborn child. One day, he says, his voice thick with a strange mix of sorrow and fierce determination, you'll climb higher than I ever could. It is not just a wish. It is a vow, a prayer sent into the universe. A promise that this cycle of toil for so little reward will not be his child's inheritance. This child will not be bound to the trunks of these trees. This child will climb mountains, will reach for stars he can only dream of. Outside, the wind rustles through the palm fronds. They seem to whisper back, not in words that a human ear can understand, but in the ancient, endless rhythm of the coaster, rhythm of wind and waves, of sun and sand, of memory and time. It is the sound of continuity, the sound of life persisting against all odds. The palms have seen generations of men like Hassan, have heard countless whispers of hope in the twilight. The day has broken a man's body, yes, it has bent his back and calloused his hands. But as Hassan stands there, his hand resting on the swell of his wife's belly, feeling the promise of a new life, it is clear that the day has not broken his spirit. His spirit remains, resilient and unbroken, anchored by a love that is as vast and as powerful as the ocean itself. It is a spirit that looks toward the sunrise of a new day and a new generation, with a hope that cannot be extinguished. As the sun begins to soften, its harsh midday glare giving way to a gentler, more forgiving light, a subtle change happens on the island. The wind, which all morning blew from the vast expanse of the sea, now shifts, carrying the scent of the land back towards the ocean. This is the signal. For the coconut harvesters, the day's first ritual of climbing and cutting is over. Now, the second begins. The long walk. One by one, they hoist heavy sacks of coconuts onto their backs. Some, the strongest, or perhaps the most desperate, take to, the woven fibers digging into their shoulders. The weight is immense, a solid, unyielding burden that will follow them every step of the way. Their journey is not a simple one. The path to the oil press isn't a wide, paved road. It's a labyrinth of narrow coral alleys, the very bones of Lamu town. These ancient passageways have been worn smooth by generations of footsteps just like theirs. They walk past the crumbling walls of old mosques, silent witnesses to centuries of prayer and struggle. They pass under archways intricately carved with verses from the Quran, reminders of a faith that sustains them through these long, arduous days. Their feet, many of them bare, drag against the sandy ground, but there's a rhythm to their movement. It's a slow, steady, hypnotic cadence. One foot, then the other. It's the rhythm of endurance, of just keeping going. Inside their sacks, the coconuts rattle against each other, a dry, hollow sound, like bones shaking inside a drum, a constant percussion to their weary march. The air itself tells a story. It's thick with a complex mixture of scents. There's the sharp, clean smell of salt carried from the sea, a reminder of the island's isolation. Then there's the rich, nutty aroma of coconut oil, the very purpose of their labor, hanging heavy in the humid air, and underneath it all, a faint, sweet smell of decay, of time and history slowly breaking down the coral stone and wooden beams of the town. Lamu's beauty is deceptive. It hides its hunger well. A tourist might stand on the shore, see the brilliant turquoise water, the white sand beaches, and call this place paradise. They see the postcard image, the idyllic escape. But for the harvesters, this paradise has a different texture. For them, every grain of sand under their feet feels like a grain of debt, a constant reminder of what is owed, what is needed, what is just out of reach. This walk isn't just a physical journey from the grove to the press. It's a daily pilgrimage of survival, each step a testament to their resilience in a world that demands so much and gives back so little. This is the reality behind the beauty, the sweat-soaked truth of island life. As they finally arrive at the press, the atmosphere shifts again. The air grows thick and heavy, not just with scents, but with oppressive heat. This isn't the open heat of the sun, but the contained, intense warmth of labor and machinery. The oil press is a marvel of simplicity and raw power. There are no complex gears, no electric motors. It's a system of heavy wooden beams, large, smooth stone basins, and a massive pestle, driven not by fuel, but by pure human muscle. The men work in turns, their bodies moving in a coordinated, rhythmic dance of effort. They pound the shredded coconut flesh, their muscles straining with each powerful downward strike. It's a steady, percussive beat that echoes through the small space, the sound of transformation. Sweat drips from their foreheads, running down their faces and necks, some of it inevitably falling into the mixture below. It's an unseen ingredient, a salty offering of their own bodies, mixed into the very oil they are creating. Overseeing this entire operation is the pressmaster, an old man named Bwana Musa. He is a figure of quiet authority, his presence commanding respect. He watches over the men with a practiced gaze, one of his eyes clouded and blind, a testament to a long life of hard work and perhaps a past injury. The other eye, however, is sharp and misses nothing. Bwana Musa doesn't measure their labor by the ticking of a clock or the passing of the sun. He measures it by something far more intuitive, more intimate. He listens. He judges their work by the texture of the pulp, by the changing sound it makes as it softens and breaks down under the relentless pounding of the pestle. He has a philosophy born from a lifetime of this work, a deep understanding of the relationship between man and nature on this island. He often says, his voice raspy from the dusty air, "The tree gives nothing freely. He believes nature holds its gifts tightly. You must squeeze it," he'll continue, gesturing with a weathered hand towards the press until it remembers the ocean it came from. It's a beautiful, poetic idea. The coconut tree draws its life from the sandy soil near the sea. its roots drinking water that is tinged with salt. The oil, in his eyes, is the tree's memory of the ocean, a precious liquid that can only be released through intense pressure and struggle. It's a lesson he imparts not just about coconuts, but about life itself on Lamu. The rhythmic pounding continues, a constant heartbeat in the sweltering workshop. Each thud of the pestle is a punctuation mark in a long story of toil. The men's faces are stoic, focused on the task. They understand Bonamuse's words implicitly. They know that nothing here is given. Everything must be earned, squeezed out through strength and sweat. They are not just extracting oil. They are wresting a livelihood from the very fibers of the island, forcing it to give up its hidden richness. The air is so thick you can almost taste it, a combination of coconut, sweat, and the damp, earthy smell of the stone press. This is the alchemy of survival, turning raw fruit into liquid gold, one powerful, rhythmic motion at a time. By late afternoon, after hours of relentless pounding, the miracle begins to happen. The oil starts to flow. At first, it's just a seep, a glistening on the surface of the pulp. Then, it becomes a trickle, and finally, a steady stream. It's a beautiful cider, thick, golden, fragrant liquid, the culmination of the day's immense effort. This liquid gold is carefully collected and poured into old, repurposed tin cans, the kind that might have once held cooking fat or fruit. Each can is marked for sale, destined for the market in Lamu town or for export to the mainland. But what is the reward for the men whose sweat and strength brought it into being? It's painfully modest. Their payment is a handful of coins, barely enough to cover the day's needs. Certainly not enough to build a future. They also receive a small portion of the oil itself, a few spoonfuls to take home. It's a precious commodity. It's enough to cook with, to add flavor and fat to their simple meals of rice and fish. It's enough to shine their skin, a traditional practice that offers a moment of dignity and care. But it is never, ever enough to lift them from the precarious edge of survival where they live their lives. Hassan, one of the younger harvesters, stands back for a moment. He wipes his hands on his trousers, but it does little to clean them. They are dark, stained with a mixture of rich oil and the dirt of the day's labor. He looks out through the doorway of the press, his gaze drifting towards the pier. He can see the dhows, their elegant, curved shapes silhouetted against the afternoon sky. These traditional sailing boats are waiting to carry the tins of oil to Mombasa and beyond. As he watches them, a thought crosses his mind. He wonders about the world beyond the sea, the world that will eventually receive this product of his sweat. Do the people there, in their busy cities and different lives, ever smell anything like this? Does their world ever smell of this unique, potent combination of salt from the ocean, sweat from a man's brow, and the silent, unspoken pride of creating something with your own two hands? It's a question without an answer, a fleeting thought from a man whose world is defined by the rhythm of the tides, the weight of a coconut sack, and the golden gleam of oil in a tin can. And as the sun dips lower, another day's labor is done, with the promise of the same struggle awaiting him at dawn. While the men of Lamu scale the towering palms, their silhouettes etched against the rising sun, and pound the copra with a rhythm that has echoed through generations. The women carry a different kind of weight. It's a weight of water, of oil, and of unspoken expectation. At the break of dawn, as the first light kisses the Swahili coast, they begin their day. Clay pots, cool to the touch, are balanced with practiced ease on their heads. They walk in single file towards the wells, their colorful kangas a vibrant streak against the sandy paths. Their laughter, light and musical, weaves through the air, blending with the morning songs of unseen birds. It's a scene of timeless beauty, a postcard from paradise. But look closer, beneath the graceful posture and the easy smiles, and you'll find an exhaustion that runs deeper than the wells they draw from, an exhaustion too profound for words. Among them is Asha, Hassan's wife. Her day is a constant, fluid motion between the hearth of her home and the bustling energy of the market. She is the anchor of her family. Her hands, nimble and sure, fan the glowing coals of her charcoal stove, the heat rising to meet the humid air. She expertly fries fish in the fragrant coconut oil her husband provides, the sizzle a familiar soundtrack to her life. In moments of quiet, she sits and braids her hair, her fingers moving in silent, intricate patterns, a brief respite in a day defined by service. When Asha walks through the narrow, winding streets of the town, a subtle scent of coconut oil follows her like a shadow. It is a fragrance that marks her identity. She is both the beneficiary of the harvest and a tireless laborer in her own right, a provider in a world that often overlooks her contribution. This scent is her signature, the aroma of her life's work. Imagine the mid-morning market. The air is thick with the smells of the sea, of spices, of sun-baked earth. Women move with purpose, some still carrying water pots, others setting up stalls to sell the day's catch or the coconuts that haven't been processed. Children, full of boundless energy, weave between the legs of shoppers and vendors, their laughter echoing through the crowded space. It's a microcosm of Lamu life, a vibrant tapestry of commerce and community. Asha is here, a part of this intricate dance. She understands the true value of every single drop of oil that Hassan brings home. She knows it's worth not in shillings, but in substance. This golden liquid is what feeds their children, turning simple grains into a nourishing meal. It's what soothes their skin after a long day under the relentless sun, a natural balm against the elements. It's what lights their simple lamp when darkness falls, casting a warm, flickering glow that holds the night at bay. This oil is not a luxury. It is the very essence of their survival. But Asha also carries a knowledge that weighs heavily on her heart. She sees the way Hassan's back bends a little lower each week, the toll of climbing and cutting etched into his posture. She feels the way the few coins they earn seem to stretch thinner and thinner with each passing month, as the price of flour and sugar slowly creeps up. The harvest from the palms is constant, but the security it provides feels increasingly fragile. The coconut tree gives, but the world outside takes more and more. At her small spot in the market, Asha arranges little bottles of the precious oil. Tourists, with their sun hats and cameras, often stop, drawn by the allure of something authentic. They pick up the bottles, admiring the clear, fragrant liquid. Exotic, they call it, a word that feels worlds away from Asha's reality. They pay their shillings, happy with their souvenir, a small piece of Lamu to take back home. They never see the blisters on Hassan's hands, the ache in his shoulders, or the worry in Asha's eyes. They buy the product, but they can't possibly imagine the story of sweat, strain, and sacrifice that is poured into every bottle. The story behind its making remains invisible. The day bleeds into night, and the bustling energy of Lamu softens into a gentle hush. The only sounds are the rhythmic shushing of the waves against the shore and the rustle of the sea breeze through the palm fronds. Inside their small hut, lit by the soft, warm glow of a single coconut oil lamp, the exhaustion of the day settles upon them. Asha listens to Hassan's breathing. It's heavy, uneven, the sound of a body pushed to its limits. She takes a little of the same oil she sold at the market and gently, lovingly, rubs it into his calloused hands. Her touch is a silent language of care, an acknowledgement of his hard labor. As she works the oil into his skin, she whispers the old Swahili prayers her mother taught her. The words a lifeline, connecting her to the generations of women who came before her, who knew this same life, this same struggle, this same love. Mtiwa Nazi, Ushwengos, she murmurs, her voice barely audible above the sound of the sea. Uzidwesh bila kifuli tree of coconut, guide us, do not leave us without shade. It's a prayer not for riches, but for resilience. A plea for the continued protection of the tree that is their everything, their food, their income, their shelter. The shade is a metaphor for security, for a life where they are not left exposed to the harsh sun of poverty and despair. In this quiet, intimate moment, the truth of their existence is laid bare. Her life, too, is a harvest. But her harvest isn't gathered from the high branches of a tree. It's reaped from the deep soil of her own being. It's a harvest of patience, of quiet endurance, of the unspoken understanding that survival is not a solitary act, but shared work. He climbs the tree, and she holds the foundation. He brings the nuts, and she turns them into life. Together, under the watchful gaze of the coconut palms, they carry the weight of their world, bound by oil, by prayer, and by a love as enduring as the tides. Their story, like the oil itself, is one of pressure and extraction, resulting in something that sustains, heals, and illuminates the darkness. The weeks bleed into one another, each day a mirror of the last. The sun rises, we climb. The sun sets, we descend. A rhythm dictated not by the moon or the tides, but by the relentless weight of the coconuts. The palms, once symbols of life and shade, now just feel heavy, their fronds burdened with fruit that promises profit for some and pain for us. The blisters on my hands, which had just started to heal, crack open again, raw and stinging. It's the price we pay, a constant, nagging reminder of our place in this chain. One morning, the overseer returns. He's not alone this time. Beside him stands a younger man, someone I've never seen before. He's dressed in a crisp, white shirt that seems out of place amidst the dust and sweat of the grove. It's the kind of shirt that has never known a day of real labor. In his hands, he holds a ledger, its leather cover looking stern and official. He doesn't speak to us, not directly. He just follows the overseer, his eyes scanning everything, his pen scratching across the pages. He counts the coconuts as they're piled high. He measures the oil as it's pressed and collected. He notes down the hours we work, from the first light of dawn until our muscles scream in protest. And he writes down our names, or what he thinks are our names. I watch as he scribbles. My name, Hassan bin Omar, is shortened, stripped of its history, reduced to a mere initial and a surname. H. bin Omar, a convenience for his record-keeping. My father, Omar, a man who has climbed these trees for over 40 years. A man whose stories are woven into the very fabric of this land, becomes Old Man 3. Just a number. In the books of empire, a man's identity is as disposable as a coconut husk. We are no longer people. We are entries, figures in an equation of profit and loss. The ink from the pen seems to drain the life from our names, leaving behind only sterile, cold data on a page. I can almost see the smudges of oil from our fingers on the paper, faint fingerprints of the men whose lives are being tallied and devalued. Later that day, the merchant gathers us. He's the one who orchestrates this whole operation, the one who links our sweat to the coins in his pocket. He has an announcement. He avoids our eyes, his gaze fixed somewhere over our heads as he speaks. The prices have changed. He says, the word hanging in the air like a bad omen. He talks about transport costs and market fluctuations, words that mean nothing to us but everything to our survival. The bottom line is simple. We will now earn less for every sack of coconuts we deliver. A wave of silent frustration passes through the group, a tightening of jaws, a clenching of fists. But no one speaks up, no one argues. To argue is to invite trouble. To argue is to risk being cast aside, replaced in an instant by the next desperate man waiting at the docks. A man just as hungry, just as willing to work for even less. So we nod, our silence a bitter form of consent. We accept our fate because the alternative is starvation. That night, I can't bring myself to go inside. The air in our small hut feels suffocating, thick with unspoken anxieties. I sit outside, alone, staring at a small pool of spilled coconut oil on the ground. The moon, full and bright, is reflected in its dark, viscous surface. It looks like a captured piece of the night sky trapped here on Earth. And in that moment, I see my life reflected there too. It's not measured by the 5 daily prayers, or by the changing of the seasons, or by the laughter of my family. It's measured by ledgers. My existence is a series of lines and numbers drawn by men who have never felt the rough bark of a palm tree against their skin. Men who have never known the fear and the thrill of climbing towards the sky. My worth is determined by a pen in a hand that has never been calloused. My gaze falls on a single coconut lying on the ground, still wrapped in its rough, protective fibers. I pick it up. It feels solid, real, in my hands. I turn it over and over, feeling its texture. This small, humble fruit is the center of my world. It is my livelihood, my burden, and my curse. But inside, I know, it holds something else. It holds water. Pure, clear, sweet water. A gift from the tree. Using the back of my knife, I crack it open. Not with the hurried violence of the harvest, but gently, carefully. The sound is a soft pop. I lift it to my lips and drink. The water is cool and refreshing. It tastes of the earth, of the rain, of life itself. In that single, simple sip, there is no profit, no loss, no ledgers. It just tastes like mercy. And as the sweet water quenches my thirst, a memory surfaces, clear and vivid. A memory of my grandfather's stories. He used to tell me about the old days, about the first harvesters. They climbed these very same palms long before the merchants and their ships ever arrived. There were no ledgers back then, no coins to be counted. There was only community. They worked together, sharing the labor and sharing the rewards. They shared the oil for their lamps and their cooking. They shared the shade of the palms on hot afternoons. They shared songs as they worked, their voices rising and falling with the rhythm of their labor. The harvest was a celebration, not a transaction. The trees were their partners, not their commodities. I look up at the towering silhouettes of the palms against the night sky, their fronds swaying in the gentle breeze. A thought, a whisper of defiance, forms in my mind. The men with their ledgers, they think they own these trees. They think they own us. But they only see the numbers. They don't see the history, the spirit, the life that flows through this grove. They don't understand the connection between the land and the people. Maybe the merchants can change the price. Maybe they can reduce our names to numbers. But they can't change the nature of the tree itself. It still gives its water freely. It still offers its shade without asking for payment. I look back at the moon, no longer trapped in the pool of oil, but hanging high and free in the vast expanse of the sky. A flicker of hope ignites within me, small but warm. The stories of my grandfather are not just tales of a bygone era. They are a reminder of what is possible, a blueprint for a different way of life. A life where we are not just cogs in a machine, but a community, bound together by mutual respect and shared purpose. The idea feels radical, dangerous even, but it takes root in my heart. We have been silent for too long, bent under the weight of their system. But what if we found our voices again? What if we remembered the songs our grandfathers sang? The power isn't just in their ledgers. It's in our hands, in our numbers, in our shared history under these very trees. Lost in these thoughts, I whisper out into the quiet of the night, a prayer or a question, I'm not sure which. Maybe the tree still remembers. As if in response, a sudden gust of wind sweeps through the grove. It rustles the palm fronds, and for a moment, it sounds like a voice, ancient and deep. It sounds like an answer. It sounds like a promise. We're journeying through the incredible history of the Swahili Coast. Today, we're dropping anchor at a place wrapped in mystery and whispers of the past, Manda Island. At low tide, something magical happens here. The sea pulls back its veil, and the very bones of Manda Island show themselves again. You see these broken coral walls rising like ancient ribs from the mud, and old jars lie half buried in the tangled mangrove roots. These are the last remnants of a port that once sang with the rhythms of global trade, a place now swallowed by an profound, almost sacred silence. The local fishermen have a saying. They say the island breathes, that when the wind shifts just so, you can hear the sighs of sailors who set sail from distant lands but never made it home. But for the people of nearby Lamu, Manda is more than just a ruin. It's a living memory, a story half drowned by the ocean, but also half sacred, held tightly in the heart of their culture. It's a connection to their ancestors, a reminder of both glory and loss, written in stone and coral. Long, long ago, before Lamu town grew into the proud, stone-built marvel we know today, Manda was the undisputed heart of the Swahili Coast. This wasn't just a settlement. It was a cosmopolitan metropolis, a crossroads of civilizations. Imagine the scene. Magnificent ships from Arabia, their sails catching the monsoon winds, dropping anchor alongside vessels from Gujarat in India and the great ports of Persia. The air would have been thick with the scents of foreign lands and the sounds of a dozen different languages. This was a place of immense wealth and power. Ivory, harvested from the deep interior of Africa, was weighed against gleaming silks from the Far East. Precious tortoiseshell, polished to a mirror shine, and gold dust glinting in the equatorial sun were exchanged for fragrant spices, elegant ceramics, and intricate textiles. Every tide didn't just bring in water, it carried stories. Stories of fortunes made overnight, of merchants haggling over priceless goods, of love affairs sparked between people from opposite ends of the world, and of betrayals whispered in the shadows, eventually forgotten by time, but absorbed by the island itself. Manda wasn't just a marketplace. It was a melting pot where cultures, ideas, and dreams collided and created something entirely new. Today, the scene is dramatically different, yet echoes of that grand past remain. Where those great trading ships once stood, their hulls heavy with treasure, you now see local fishermen anchoring their small, elegant dhow. The very same waters that welcomed merchants from across the known world now provide a livelihood for the descendants of this ancient maritime culture. They come ashore to mend their nets among the ruins, their hands working with practiced ease amidst shards of pottery that have lain here for centuries. Look closely at these fragments. You can still see the turquoise glaze, the intricate patterns that speak of a time of incredible artistry and wealth. Each piece catches the sun, flashing like a brief, brilliant memory of the prosperity that once defined this island. It is a humbling sight to see the tools of daily survival interwoven with the remnants of a fallen empire. Let's just pause here for a moment. Can you hear that? The fire crackles softly, and if you listen closely, you can almost hear the surf whispering through time, telling tales of the city that was. It's in these quiet moments, surrounded by the ghosts of history, that you truly feel the soul of Manda. The air itself feels heavy with unspoken stories, and you get the sense that you are standing on ground that has witnessed the full spectrum of human experience, from triumphant joy to devastating loss. So, what happened? How could such a vibrant and powerful center simply vanish? The sea took Manda slowly, not in one single cataclysmic event, but with the patient, relentless power of nature. It was a gradual decline, a slow machine collapse. Storm by storm, year by year, the ocean encroached. The sand carried on the relentless tides, choked its freshwater wells, making life increasingly difficult for its inhabitants. And where bustling streets and alleyways once wound their way through the city, coral reefs began to grow, with the sea literally paving over the works of man. Naturally, legends grew to explain the city's demise. Some say the spirits of drowned merchants, cheated in life, cursed the island for its greed, calling upon the ocean to wash away the ill-gotten gains. It's a cautionary tale, a reminder that avarice can lead to ruin. Others offer a more philosophical view. They believe the earth merely reclaimed what men had borrowed for a time, that the island was a temporary loan from nature, and eventually the lease ran out. The truth is likely a combination of factors: climate shifts, changing trade routes, and the unstoppable force of the sea. But the legends, they hold a deeper truth about the relationship between humanity and the natural world. Hassan, a fisherman whose family has lived in this archipelago for generations, sometimes ferries curious tourists past the island at sunset. The light is golden, and the ruins take on a hauntingly beautiful quality. They raise their cameras, they take photos of the skeletal walls silhouetted against the vibrant sky, and they always ask the same question: what happened here? Hassan, with a slight, knowing smile, gives them the same answer every time. He looks out at the water and says, "The sea remembered its hunger." The tourists usually laugh politely. They think it's a piece of local poetry, a quaint, colorful phrase. They don't understand that for Hassan, and for the people of this coast, he is speaking the literal truth. It's a truth they live with every day. A deep understanding of the immense power of the ocean, its ability to give life, to sustain communities, but also its capacity to take it all away. For them, the sea is not just a resource. It is a living entity with its own memory, its own desires, and its own timeless rhythm. Manda is the ultimate proof of that. Before Lamu was Lamu, it was Swahili, a world born of mingled tongues and tides. Imagine a coastline not just of sand and surf, but of centuries of conversations between continents. This wasn't a blank canvas waiting for outsiders to paint upon it. It was a thriving civilization, a tapestry woven with African threads long before foreign ships appeared on the horizon. But history, as we know, has its storytellers, and it also has its thieves. Centuries ago, Persian settlers arrived on these shores. They called themselves Shirazi. They married local women, built mosques of coral stone, and, most importantly, they brought with them a powerful story. They claimed noble descent from distant kings in a faraway land. And like a seed planted in fertile ground, this story began to grow. Over time, the island's own children, hearing these tales repeated generation after generation, started to believe that greatness hadn't sprung from their own soil, but had sailed in from abroad. This narrative, the Shirazi myth, grew like persistent ivy, climbing over the truth, obscuring the foundations beneath. It whispered a subtle, damaging idea that civilization came with pale sails, that the African shore was merely a backdrop, a stage for a drama that began elsewhere. It was a story that devalued the local and lionized the foreign. Yet, look around. The evidence of a vibrant, indigenous culture was everywhere. It was in the very stones of the towns, cut from coral and shaped by local hands. It was in the rhythmic poetry, the asterisk, masheri asterisk, that echoed in the narrow alleys. It was in the intricately carved wooden doors, each one a testament to a family's history and a uniquely Swahili art form. All of this was born of Africa's own hands, Africa's own ingenuity. Let's just pause for a moment and let that sink in. Feel the weight of that identity, drifting like tide water between pride in one's roots and the alluring pull of a story about foreign nobility. Imagine being told that everything beautiful and sophisticated about your home was an import. This wasn't just a historical footnote. It was a profound crisis of identity that would echo for centuries. Now, fast forward to a more modern era, scholars, archaeologists, and linguists began to dig both literally and figuratively. They studied the language, unearthed the pottery, and analyzed the architecture, and what they found confirmed what the elders and the oral traditions had always known. The Swahili culture was fundamentally, unequivocally African at its root. The Arabic and Persian influences were undeniable, yes, but they were flavors, spices added to a dish that was already rich and complex. They were not the main ingredients. But myths are stubborn things. They have a life of their own, often outliving the hard evidence that debunks them. They embed themselves in family names, in social status, in the quiet assumptions people make about themselves and their neighbors. Even today, you can find families on the coast who proudly trace their bloodlines back to Shiraz, polishing these names like precious heirlooms passed down through generations. The story, it seems, is sometimes more comfortable than the truth. This is where personal history becomes so powerful. It acts as an anchor in the shifting tides of grand narratives. Hassan's grandmother was one such anchor. She was a keeper of the real story, the one that wasn't written in foreign texts, but was lived and breathed on the island. She used to gather the children around her and say, with a certainty that left no room for doubt, "We are not from Persia. We are from the palm and the coral. The ocean only lent us words." What a profound statement. The ocean only lent us words. She was acknowledging the influence, the trade, the exchange, but she was firmly reclaiming the origin. She was saying that the essence of who they were came from the land itself. From the resilient palm trees that bent in the monsoon winds but never broke, and from the coral that formed the very foundation of their homes. Her stories were more than just bedtime tales, they were a shield. When Hassan was a young man and went to the mainland, merchants would sometimes mock his coastal accent, or make comments about the color of his skin, implying he was less pure or less Arab than those who claimed foreign descent. In those moments, his grandmother's words would come back to him. They grounded him, while others clung to a lineage from a distant, perhaps imaginary, Persian king. His grandmother taught him that the palm tree was the only lineage worth claiming. Why the palm? Because it grew where it stood. It didn't need to invent a history from across the sea to feel worthy. It was strong, flexible, and deeply rooted in its own environment. And, crucially, it gave freely its fronds for roofing, its fruit for sustenance, its trunk for building. It gave without shame, without needing to prove its value. To her, this was the ultimate lesson in identity, to find your strength not in a borrowed story, but in the truth of where you stand and what you contribute to the world. Think of that scene, an evening in a lantern-lit courtyard, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and salt. An elder woman, her face a map of her life's experiences, telling stories to a group of wide-eyed children. Beside them, a massive, carved Swahili door stands as a silent witness. And just beyond the walls, you can hear the constant rhythmic murmur of the Indian Ocean. The same ocean that brought settlers and traders, but also the same ocean that has rocked the children of this coast to sleep for 1,000 years. Her voice, weaving the real history of her people, becomes a force more powerful than any myth. A legacy of truth, passed down in the quiet moments, from one generation to the next. This struggle over narrative isn't unique to Lamu. It's a universal story about how power shapes history, and how communities must constantly fight to tell their own truths. The Shirazi myth served a purpose. It created a social hierarchy, giving power and prestige to a select few. By linking themselves to a powerful external empire, early settlers could legitimize their rule over the local population. It was a classic colonial tactic, deployed long before the Europeans arrived. It created a class system where proximity to foreignness, be it in bloodline, language, or even skin tone, was valued over indigenous identity. But the resilience of the Swahili people lies in their ability to absorb and transform these influences without losing their core identity. They took the Arabic script and used it to write their own Bantu language, Kiswahili. They adopted Islamic faith but infused it with their own local customs and spiritual beliefs. They saw the dhows arriving from Persia and Arabia not as carriers of a superior civilization, but as opportunities for trade and exchange. They were masters of adaptation, not victims of cultural colonization. The work of Hassan's grandmother, and countless others like her, is the work of cultural restoration. It is an act of defiance against a story that would render them secondary characters in their own history. By insisting, "We are from the palm and the coral," she was performing a sacred act of remembering. She was teaching the children that their heritage was on something to be excavated by foreign scholars in the distant future. It was a living, breathing thing they carried inside them. This reclamation of history is happening all along the Swahili Coast today. Young artists are reviving traditional music. Chefs are celebrating indigenous ingredients. Historians and community leaders are working to ensure that the next generation grows up with a sense of pride rooted in the rich, complex, and deeply African soil of their home. They are learning that their history is not one of lack, but one of abundance. So, when we look at the beautiful architecture of Lamu, or listen to the melodic flow of Kiswahili, let's remember the full story. Let's appreciate the threads from Arabia and Persia, but let's honor the African loom that wove them all together. Let's remember the quiet strength of the elders who kept the true story alive, who knew that true nobility doesn't come from a borrowed name or a distant king, but from the resilience of the palm tree and the enduring strength of the coral. When moonlight falls on the ruins of Manda, something magical happens. The outlines of old markets appear like shadows cast by a forgotten moon. You can almost see where a spice stall once stood, its fragrant air mixing with the salty breeze. Over there, a prayer niche, a mihrab, faithfully facing Mecca, a silent testament to enduring faith. And just beyond it, the steps where weary sailors once washed the salt and the long sea voyages from their feet, their skin wrinkled by sun and water. Hassan stands among them sometimes, a single lantern in his hand, its warm light pushing back the immense darkness of the night and the sea. He becomes a silhouette among silhouettes, a living man walking through a city of ghosts. The wind, a constant companion on this coast, hums a low, mournful tune through the empty arches. It sounds almost like a muezzin's call, not summoning the living to prayer, but calling the spirits of this place, the ghosts of Manda, to remember. It's a hauntingly beautiful symphony, a dialogue between the present and the long-lost past. In these quiet moments, surrounded by the whispers of history, Hassan lets his imagination roam free. He hears voices echoing in the wind, not arguing over the price of ivory or cloves, but bargaining for something far more precious: memory. He imagines a trader, not bartering with gold coins or silver dinars, but trading stories, fragments of a life lived, in exchange for a moment of remembrance, because that's what every civilization does, isn't it? It trades with time. The empires, the merchants, the sailors, they all make a bargain. They offer their achievements, their art, their very existence, hoping that time will be a fair partner, that it will preserve their legacy. The currency changes from gold to stone, from stone to story, but the trade is eternal. Here, in the submerged city of Manda, the currency is the glimmer of moonlight on water, the texture of coral, the sound of the tide. It's a transaction happening right before our eyes. The city gives its silent stories to the sea, and the sea, in return, cradles its ruins, preserving them in a salty embrace. Hassan, with his lantern, is a witness to this ancient negotiation. He sees the past not as something dead and gone, but as an active participant in the present, constantly whispering its terms to anyone who will listen. The ghosts of Manda aren't just remnants. They are negotiators, ensuring their world is never truly forgotten, bartering for a place in the memory of the living. Hassan moves slowly, his bare feet sinking slightly into the damp sand. His lantern casts long, dancing shadows that make the ruins seem to breathe. He stops and kneels by a fragment of glazed tile, half buried but still defiant against the centuries. The moonlight catches its surface, revealing a sliver of deep, brilliant blue, a color that seems to hold the depth of the ocean itself. He reaches out and traces the intricate geometric pattern with his thumb, feeling the faint ridges and grooves etched by a craftsman's hand hundreds of years ago. As his thumb follows the lines, a powerful connection sparks within him. The design, this specific confluence of stars and lines, is identical to the pattern on his grandmother's old cooking pot. The very pot she used to cook fragrant coconut rice, its scent filling their home, a scent of comfort and family. It's a stunning realization, a jolt of electricity that travels from the ancient tile through his hand and straight to his heart. This small piece of ceramic is more than just a relic. It is proof. It is tangible evidence that heritage is not a fragile thing that can be swept away by the tide or buried by the sands of time. It proves that heritage never truly sinks. It persists. It finds ways to resurface in the patterns on a pot, in the melody of a song, in the way a story is told from one generation to the next. Let's pause for a moment, right here. Just listen. Listen beyond the sound of my voice. Can you hear it? The hush between the waves. That moment of perfect stillness after a wave has crashed and before the next one begins to swell. It's a sacred silence. In that quiet, you can almost hear the breath of ancestors. It's the collective sigh of the sailors, the merchants, the mothers, the builders of this place. They are here in the rhythm of the ocean, in the very air we breathe. Their legacy isn't just in the stones. It's in the silence that holds their memory. It's a profound connection, a reminder that we are part of a story that is so much older and grander than our own individual lives. Before leaving the embrace of the moonlit ruins, Hassan performs a small, personal ritual. It's not a grand ceremony, just a simple, heartfelt gesture. He unseals a small flask he carries and pours a handful of pure coconut oil into the sand, right at the water's edge. It's an offering, a gift to the drowned traders whose names are lost to history, but whose toil and ambition built this entire coast. Their sweat and dreams are mixed with the mortar of these walls. The oil pools for a moment, a shimmering, golden disk on the dark, wet sand, gleaming in the moonlight like a fallen star. It holds its form for just a breath, a fleeting tribute. Then, the next wave gently rolls in, and the tide takes it. The oil dissolves, spreading across the surface of the water in a beautiful, iridescent sheen. Light returning to the water. It's a perfect circle. The land, through the coconut, gives its light to the sea, just as the sea's trade once gave life and light to the land. It's a gesture of gratitude, of acknowledging a debt that can never be fully repaid, but must always be remembered. As Hassan watches the light dissipate into the vast, dark ocean, he feels a sense of peace. He is not just an observer. He is a participant in this ongoing cycle of memory and offering. He is keeping the story alive, one small act of remembrance at a time, ensuring that the lights of Manda, though submerged, will never truly be extinguished. As he turns to walk back, the lantern in his hand feels less like a tool to see in the dark and more like a beacon carrying the stories of this place forward. A small flame of memory against the vastness of the ocean and the even greater vastness of time. He knows he will return, again and again, to listen to the wind, to trace the patterns in the stone, and to offer his small gift to the spirits of the tide. Because here, in the ruins of Manda, the past is not a foreign country. It is home. The elite of Lamu, they don't just live in houses, they inhabit history. Picture this. Homes built from ancient coral stone, walls that have absorbed centuries of secrets. Windows aren't just glass. They're intricate latticework, casting patterns of light and shadow on the floors and the doors. Oh, the doors are masterpieces, carved with verses from the Quran, intertwined with delicate vines and floral motifs, each one a testament to the family's legacy and faith. Inside these silent fortresses, time itself seems to slow down. The clamor of the outside world, the donkey's hooves on stone, the chatter of the marketet, all fades away. Here, the only sounds that truly matter are the rhythmic call of the adhan, echoing from the minarets, a sacred thread connecting day and night, and a soft, whisper-like rustle of silk as the women of the house move through the cool, dim corridors. It's a world of quiet opulence, a stark contrast to the sun-baked, bustling life just outside those heavy doors. Hassan had known of these houses his entire life. He'd walked past them, his sandals scuffing the dust at their thresholds, imagining the lives lived within. But he had never, not once, crossed such a threshold. They were as distant to him as the moon, sanctuaries for the wealthy merchants and scholars who shaped the island's destiny. To him, they were just walls that defined the boundaries of his world. Then, one sweltering afternoon, the impossible happened. A summons arrived. A prominent merchant, known for his vast wealth and perfumed robes, required a delivery of fresh coconut oil, the very oil Hassan and his family painstakingly produced. The message was simple, but the implication was monumental. Hassan was to go to the merchant's house himself. Standing before the door, he felt a tremor of awe and anxiety. It loomed over him, less like an entrance and more like a gateway to a completely different realm. The wood was dark and ancient, studded with gleaming brass knobs that shone like a constellation of stars against the polished surface. The air around him was thick, heavy with the intoxicating scent of jasmine. A fragrance so pure and potent it felt like a curtain separating his world from the one that lay beyond. He hesitated, his knuckles hovering just above the wood, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This was it. He was about to step through the looking-glass. With a deep breath, he knocked. The sound was swallowed by the thick wood. A moment passed, then another, before a small, grilled window in the door slid open. A pair of eyes inspected him. Then the window slid shut. With a low groan of ancient hinges and the click of a heavy bolt, the magnificent door began to swing inward. The sudden shift from the glaring afternoon sun to the cool, shaded interior was dizzying. Before him lay a courtyard that stole his breath. It was an oasis of tranquility. Tall, slender palm trees reached for a sliver of blue sky, their fronds rustling gently in a breeze he couldn't feel. Light filtered through the leaves, dappling the stone floor in ever-shifting, intricate patterns like living lace. The air was cool and moist, a welcome relief from the oppressive heat outside. It was a space designed for peace, for contemplation. And then he saw them. Women draped in brightly colored Kanga's vibrant fabrics of red, blue, and yellow glided between the stone pillars that supported the upper balconies. They moved with a silent, effortless grace, their steps making no sound on the polished floors. Their faces were veiled, adding to their mystique. Their voices soft murmurs that were absorbed by the thick walls of the courtyard. They were like beautiful, exotic birds in a gilded cage, their world contained within these coral walls. His eyes drifted to the walls themselves. Hanging in ornate frames were polished brass mirrors, so bright they seemed to capture the light. But as Hassan looked closer, he realized they reflected more than just the faces of those who passed by. They reflected the immense distance between his life and theirs. In their gleaming surfaces, he saw his own dusty clothes, his calloused hands, and the weary lines on his young face. The mirrors didn't just show a reflection. They showed a separation, a chasm of wealth, status, and experience that felt impossible to cross. Let's just pause here for a moment. Imagine that scene. The fire of the midday sun blazes outside, indifferent, shining on both the grand merchant's house and the simple shack where Hassan lives. The same sun, the same sky, yet these walls, built from the very coral of the island, create such a profound division. They separate not just spaces, but lives, destinies, and dreams. It makes you think, doesn't it? How we build barriers, both visible and invisible, that divide us even when we share the same earth. The merchant finally appeared. He was a large man, his body overflowing the confines of his silken robes, which shimmered with threads of gold. A heavy perfume, a mix of oud and spices, radiated from him, an almost suffocating cloud of wealth. He didn't greet Hassan. He simply gestured towards the clay pot of oil. With a practiced, almost dismissive air, the merchant dipped a finger, adorned with a large, glittering jewel, into the oil. He brought the finger to his nose, inhaling deeply, then rubbed a small amount between his thumb and forefinger, testing its purity and texture. Hassan held his breath. He knew the oil was perfect, the best of their latest batch, but in the presence of such a man, doubt crept in like a shadow. After a long moment, the merchant gave a curt, satisfied nod. He clapped his hands, and a servant scurried forward with a small purse. The merchant counted out a few coins and dropped them into Hassan's waiting palm. Hassan's heart sank. He quickly counted them. It was only half of the agreed-upon price. Half. Every instinct screamed at him to protest, to demand what he was owed, to defend the value of his family's hard labor. But one look at the merchant's impassive face, at the casual authority in his eyes, silenced the words in his throat. Arguing was not an option. It was a privilege he did not have. So he swallowed his pride. the bitter taste of it feeling like sand in his mouth. He bowed his head low, murmuring a thank you that felt like a betrayal of himself. As he turned to leave, his shoulders slumped with the weight of the injustice. His gaze fell upon another figure in the expansive courtyard. A young servant girl, perhaps not much older than his own sister, was sweeping the stone floor with a pomp-frond broom. Her movements were mechanical, weary, but it was her eyes that caught his attention. They were hollow, empty pools that seemed to have seen too much and hoped for too little. And then he noticed her wrists. Faint, pale scars circled them, not from injury, but from the constant chafing of the heavy silver bracelets she wore, bracelets that were not adornments, but symbols of her station, of her unending duty. In that instant, a profound realization struck Hassan with the force of a physical blow. He had always looked at the wealthy with a mix of envy and awe, imagining their lives to be free and boundless. But looking at the veiled women, the perfumed merchant, and this young, hollow-eyed servant, he saw the truth. Wealth wasn't freedom. It was just another kind of harness. The merchant was harnessed by his reputation and his possessions. The women were harnessed by tradition and the gilded walls of their home. And the servant was harnessed by her obligations, marked by the very jewelry meant to signify her master's wealth. Everyone in this house of history was bound by something. And as he stepped back out into the familiar, blinding sunlight, Hassan felt, for the first time, a strange and startling sense of his own freedom. Each year, as the Kaskasi winds shift their course, the island holds its breath in anticipation. The dhows, those ancient wooden vessels that have danced with the monsoons for centuries, return home. Their bellies are not empty. They are heavy with the spoils of trade, with fabrics, spices, and stories from distant lands. And with their return, Lamu awakens. The island doesn't just wake up, it bursts into a symphony of celebration. Imagine this, the deep, resonant thrum of drums echoing through the narrow, winding alleys of the old town. The sound bounces off the coral stone walls, a heartbeat that unites every soul on the island. The very air you breathe becomes thick and fragrant, a heady perfume of clove and tamarind, mingling with the salt spray from the ocean. It's a scent that speaks of history, of trade, and of joyous reunion. Inside the cool, stoic stone houses, another kind of magic unfolds. The women, adorned in their colorful kangas, gather in the courtyards. Laughter fills the air as they prepare the feasts. Giant pots of rice steam gently, each grain infused with the creamy richness of fresh coconut milk. The aroma alone is enough to make your mouth water. On open grills, freshly caught fish sizzle, their skin crisping to perfection, drizzled with the sharp, zesty juice of lime. In the evenings, as the equatorial sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple, the men gather. They tune their ouds, the pear-shaped lutes whose melodies have been the soundtrack to Swahili life for generations. The flickering light of candles dances on polished brass trays, casting long, moving shadows on the walls. It's a scene of profound peace and community. A moment suspended in time where stories are whispered, passed down from elder to youth, carried on the soft, melancholic notes of the oud. But this celebration is more than just a feast for the senses. Amidst the laughter, the music, and the fragrant steam, another current flows, one that is subtle yet powerful. Among the guests are the poets. These are not just entertainers. They are the conscience of the island, the keepers of its soul. They are men who must walk a fine line, their hearts brimming with words that could be deemed dangerous. They are men who hide verses within riddles, who cloak their dissent in beautiful metaphors. Afraid of offending the powerful rulers, yet utterly unwilling to let injustice pass in silence. They are the masters of subtext and allegory. Listen closely as one of them recites. His voice, a low and captivating murmur, rises above the gentle hum of the gathering. He speaks not of rebellion directly, but of the vast, untamable ocean. He compares its endless expanse to the concept of freedom, a force that cannot be contained by any wall or decree. He speaks of the humble palm tree, its fronds battered by the relentless winds, yet standing tall, a symbol of resilience and endurance. Their words are not shouted from the rooftops. They are delicate, intricate, floating through the night air like tendrils of incense smoke, seeping into the consciousness of those who listen. Let's just pause here for a moment. Close your eyes. Can you inhale that? That potent mixture of spice and sea, of celebration and quiet, simmering rebellion. It's the very essence of Lamu. Later that night, long after the last notes of the oud have faded and the guests have departed, one of these poems finds its way to Hassan. It isn't delivered in a grand pronouncement. It comes to him carried on the lips of a young servant boy, a whispered fragment of the evening's poetry, repeated as the boy goes about his chores. The line is simple, yet it lands with the force of a revelation. The boy murmurs, "Those who own the palms think they own the wind, but the wind obeys no one." Hassan stops what he is doing. The words seem to hang in the air, shimmering with a truth he has always felt but never articulated. This single line of poetry doesn't just enter his ears. It latches onto him, sticking to his ribs like a second heartbeat. It's a profound and powerful message. It tells him that ownership is an illusion. The powerful may lay claim to the land, to the trees, to the very labor of men like him. They may believe they are the masters of this world, but they cannot own the elemental forces. They cannot command the wind, the sea, or the spirit of a people. The wind, in its freedom, becomes a metaphor for the indomitable will, the part of a person that can never be truly conquered. For Hassan, this isn't just a pretty phrase. It's a reframing of his entire existence. It tells him that even his daily toil, the rhythmic swing of his axe, the sweat on his brow, can be its own form of quiet defiance. It is a silent, constant reminder that the most significant chains are not always forged from iron. Some are invisible chains of fear and submission. And this poem, this wisp of wind-borne truth, has just given him the key to breaking them. He understands now that his work is not just servitude, it is a testament to his own endurance, his own unyielding spirit, a spirit as free and untamable as the wind itself. This idea begins to germinate within him, a tiny seed of defiance planted in the fertile ground of his weary heart. The world hasn't changed. The sun will rise tomorrow, and he will return to the mangrove forests. The work will be just as hard, the masters just as demanding. But something inside Hassan has irrevocably shifted. The poem has given him a new lens through which to see his life. His labor is no longer just a symbol of his subjugation. It has been transformed into an act of resistance. Every swing of his axe is a declaration. Every drop of sweat is a tribute to his own resilience. He is the palm tree, enduring the storm. He is the wind, which obeys no master. This newfound perspective fuels him. It gives him a sense of purpose that transcends the mere act of survival. He starts to observe the world around him with a poet's eye. He sees the intricate patterns in the bark of the mangrove trees, the way the light filters through the dense canopy, the tireless dance of the crabs on the muddy flats. He sees a world teeming with life and resistance, a world where every creature, in its own way, asserts its right to exist. He begins to share the poem, not loudly or brazenly, but in quiet moments with other workers. He whispers it to a fellow cutter during a rest break, shares it with a boatman while loading the dhows. The words spread, a quiet contagion of hope. They don't speak of open revolt, not yet. They speak of inner freedom, of recognizing one's own worth beyond the value assigned by a master. The phrase, "the wind obeys no one," becomes a quiet mantra, a shared secret among the laborers. It's a source of solidarity, a bond forged in the shared understanding of their struggle and their inherent, untamable spirit. It's a revolution of the mind, the most dangerous kind of revolution because it cannot be seen, it cannot be crushed. It grows in the quiet, shadowed spaces of the heart. For Hassan, this is just the beginning. The poem has not just given him comfort, it has ignited a spark. It has shown him that words have power, that a single idea can be more potent than any weapon. He doesn't know where this path will lead, but for the first time in a long time, he feels the stirrings of something he had long thought lost: hope. He understands that while the owners of the palms may enjoy the shade, the wind and the spirit it represents belongs to everyone, and most of all, to those who understand its true nature. And in this understanding, Hassan finds his freedom. Have you ever wondered what separates the world of the powerful from the world of the powerless? Is it money? Is it birthright? Or is it something simpler, something more fundamental? Today, we continue Hassan's journey, and we re-about to discover a profound truth hidden in the most unexpected of places, a garden. Imagine, behind the opulent walls of the Sultan's palace, lies a garden unlike any other. It's a sanctuary of palm trees, but these are not the wild, rugged trees Hassan knows so well. These palms are aristocrats. Picture this: lush, green fronds swaying gently in the breeze, casting dappled shadows over pristine, tiled fountains where water murmurs a constant, soothing melody. The air is thick, not with the salty sweat of labor, but with the delicate scent of blossoms and damp earth. In this garden, no harvester ever climbs. There's no need for the dangerous, death-defying dance with gravity that Hassan performs daily. Instead, when the coconuts ripen, servants approach with the reverence of priests. They carry not rough-hewn tools, but slender, silver knives that glint in the sunlight. With careful, precise movements, they collect the fallen nuts. The oil from these special coconuts isn't pressed for cooking or for trade. No, this oil is a luxury. It's pressed by the gentle hands of palace handmaids and stored in exquisite porcelain jars, its sole purpose to perfume the air and anoint the skin of the elite. This isn't sustenance, it's fragrance. It's an emblem of a life lived without want. One fateful day, a well in this very garden falls into disrepair. The intricate mechanisms that draw the crystal-clear water have failed, and a specialist is needed. By a twist of fate, that specialist is Hassan. He is summoned into this world he has only ever glimpsed from afar, a world he could barely imagine. As he steps through the gates, the contrast is immediate and overwhelming. He leaves behind the dusty, sun-baked world of effort and enters a realm of cultivated ease. He walks past the shimmering fountains, his worn sandals silent on the cool tiles. And then he sees them, the palm trees. He stops, his breath catching in his throat. They are the same species he risks his life to climb every single day, the very trees that define his existence. But here, they are different. They stand tall and proud, their trunks smooth and unscarred. They are pampered, watered, and protected, treated with a tenderness usually reserved for royalty. He marvels at the sight, at the sheer injustice and beauty of it all. Here are his brothers, his silent partners in toil, living a life of unimaginable luxury. Slowly, reverently, Hassan approaches one of the trees. He reaches out a hand, his calloused fingers, so used to gripping rough bark for dear life, now tracing the trunk with an uncharacteristic softness. It's a moment of connection, of shared origin across a vast social divide. He leans in close, his voice a low murmur, a secret shared between two beings who understand the wild. You, too, he whispers, his words, almost lost in the rustling leaves, were born wild. It's a recognition, an acknowledgement that beneath the polish and the privilege, the same lifeblood flows, the same roots reach for the earth. As Hassan sets to work on the well, the sounds of the palace drift over to him. He hears the languid voices of nobles, draped in silks and jewels, lounging in the shade. They debate politics, they discuss trade routes, they talk of the wealth and stability of their empire. Their words are abstract, clean, and utterly detached from the physical reality that underpins their entire world. They speak of the oil that fuels their economy. Yet they are completely oblivious to the sweat, the grime, and the sheer, brutal effort that goes into producing it. They are blind to the Hassan of the world, the men and women whose labor is the very oil that lubricates the machine of their empire. In that moment, listening to their disembodied conversation while his own muscles strain and sweat beads on his brow, Hassan has a profound realization. It hits him with the force of a physical blow. Power, he understands, isn't just about wealth or armies. At its core, power is simply distance. It's the distance from effort. It's the privilege of not having to know where your food comes from, how your clothes are made, or whose sweat polishes the floor beneath your feet. The more powerful you are, the further removed you are from the grit and toil of survival. Let's just pause here for a moment and truly absorb this contrast. On one side, you have Hassan. Imagine the feeling of salt drying on his skin, the sharp, stinging scent of his own sweat under the blazing sun. His reality is tactile, visceral. It's the roughness of bark, the weight of a coconut, the ache in his muscles at the end of the day. His world is one of direct consequence and physical struggle. Now, picture a prince in that same garden. His skin is smooth, anointed with the fragrant palm oil from those pampered trees. The scent that surrounds him is not of sweat, but of perfume. His reality is one of aesthetics, of pleasure, of disembodied ideas. The salt on a worker's skin versus the perfume on a prince's. That is the chasm that separates their two worlds. It's a chasm not of distance in miles, but of distance in experience. Hassan finishes his work on the well. The water flows freely once more. He has done his job, skillfully and efficiently. As he prepares to leave, his eyes scan the garden one last time. He could take something. A silver knife, a small porcelain jarrah trinket that would be worth a fortune in his world, but would scarcely be missed here. It would be so easy, but he doesn't. His integrity, his sense of self, is not for sale. He is a builder, a mender, not a thief. As he walks towards the gate, he spots a single, perfect coconut lying on the manicured grass, fallen from one of the royal palms. It's an oversight, a small piece of nature's abundance that has escaped the servant's meticulous collection. He bends down, his heart pounding quietly, and picks it up. It feels solid and heavy in his hand, a tangible piece of this other world. He tucks it away, a silent souvenir. When he leaves the palace garden, Hassan takes nothing of value, nothing but this single, fallen coconut. He returns to his small hut, to his world of dust and love. Usha greets him, her eyes questioning, sensing a change in him. He doesn't speak of the nobles or the silver knives. Instead, he shows her the coconut. He holds it out, a humble offering. Later that evening, together, they find a small patch of earth by their hut. with his own hands, the same hands that repaired the Sultan's well and climbed the wild palms. Hassan digs a hole. He carefully places the coconut inside, covering it gently with soil. This seed comes from a world of privilege, but it will be raised in a world of hope. He looks at Usher, his face illuminated by the setting sun, and a quiet determination shines in his eyes. "Let's grow our own tree," he says, his voice filled with a newfound conviction. He knows it won't be a grand, pampered palace palm. It will be small, perhaps even struggling, but it will be theirs. "Let's grow our own tree," he repeats, even if its shade is small. And in that simple act, a powerful cycle renews itself. The cycle of life, of struggle, of hope. It's the story of humanity itself. Labor, born of necessity, gives birth to hope. Toil, the daily grind of survival, is transformed into tenderness, the care for a single seed, the dream of a small patch of shade. Hassan didn't steal the Sultan's wealth. He didn't join a revolution. He took a seed. He chose to plant. He chose to nurture his own future, no matter how small. He understood that true power isn't about the distance from effort, but about channeling that effort into something that grows, something that can offer shelter, something that is yours. The shade from their small tree will be the sweetest shade of all, because it is a shade they made themselves. This story reminds us that dignity and hope are not granted by the powerful. They are cultivated by the persistent. It's a powerful lesson about where true value lies. Start of script. Have you ever wondered what happens when the work is done? When the sun dips below the horizon and the day's labor fades into memory? Let's go back, one last time, to Lamu, to the heart of the coconut groves. As the moon climbs high, it casts a silvery glow over the palm trees, turning the island into a world of silver and shadow. The whole island seems to exhale a long, slow breath. The dhow boats, which danced on the waves all day, are now stilled, their sails furled like sleeping wings. The street dogs, usually a chorus of barks and yaps, are quiet. The people of Lamu, after another day measured in sweat and sunshine, are finally at rest. In a small, humble home, Hassan lies beside his wife, Asha. Just outside their window, a new sapling, a young palm tree he planted, sways gently in the night breeze. It's a symbol of hope, a promise for the future. He closes his eyes and listens. He hears the sea breathing, that rhythmic, ancient sound. It's the same breath that once carried great trading ships laden with spices and silks. The same breath that whispered myths of jinn and ancient kings. The same breath that carried the sighs of grief and the songs of joy across the water for centuries. And tonight, for the first time in a long, long time, Hassan feels a profound sense of peace. He feels neither owned by his labor nor forgotten by the world. He simply feels part of something vast, something immense. He is a note in a rhythm older than trade, a current in a tide deeper than history. Let's pause here, together, for one last time. Imagine we're sitting around a fire. The bright flames of the day's stories have now faded to glowing embers. The night folds around us, gentle and quiet, like a calm tide washing over the shore. Feel the warmth, the stillness. In this quiet moment, we can truly understand the weight and the beauty of what we've witnessed. This isn't just a story about climbing trees and harvesting coconuts. It's a story about the human spirit. The story of the coconut harvester is, in its essence, the story of endurance itself. It's about the quiet strength found in calloused hands, hands that build, that mend, that provide, day in and day out, without fanfare or applause. It's about lives that shine with an undeniable dignity, a quiet brilliance, even when they are unseen by the wider world. We often look for heroes in grand tales, but sometimes the most profound heroism is found in the steady, rhythmic beat of a simple, hard-working life. And the ocean, the vast, wise Indian Ocean. It sees everything. It remembers every single drop of coconut oil that was pressed and bottled. It remembers every song hummed between the labors of the day, those private melodies that keep the spirit light. The ocean gathers these small, seemingly insignificant moments, these drops of sweat and quiet songs, and it carries them. It carries them outward on its endless currents, weaving them into the larger story of the world. Nothing is ever truly lost. Every effort, every moment of grace contributes to the great flowing narrative of life. The world of the coconut harvester is a world of incredible balance. It's a dance between the earth and the sky. Think about it. The deep roots of the palm tree anchor it firmly in the soil, drawing strength and nourishment from the ground. Yet its fronds reach high, stretching towards the sun, the moon, and the stars, embracing the light and the wind. It is a perfect metaphor for a well-lived life, to be grounded in who you are and where you come from, but to always be reaching for something higher, for dreams, for hope, for a better tomorrow. This balance is something Hassan embodies. His feet are firmly on the ground. His connection to his family and his island is unbreakable. But his spirit, his dreams for his children, his quiet resilience, that's his reach for the sky. He doesn't just climb a tree. He ascends, bridging the gap between the terrestrial and the celestial, between the daily grind and the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. It's a powerful, humbling image. So, as we leave this story behind, let's carry a piece of it with us. Let's remember the dignity of quiet work. Let's remember the importance of being part of a community, a rhythm larger than ourselves. Let's remember that even the smallest acts of persistence and love ripple outward, carried on tides we may never see. The next time you see a palm tree, maybe you'll think of Hassan. Maybe you'll think of the strength it takes to stand tall, to weather the storms, and to offer fruit to the world. Thank you for sharing this journey with us, for listening with an open heart. We hope this story has brought you a measure of peace and perspective. May your dreams tonight be as soft as palm leaves, swaying in a gentle breeze, and as deep and mysterious as the sea itself. Thank you so much for watching. If these stories resonate with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps us continue to find and share these quiet, powerful narratives from around the world. Until next time, be well. You are under Baobab Skies.